All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into Dwayne Moore's book, The Untwisting, Finding the Real You.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at this one yet?
Yeah, I actually had a chance to skim through it last night. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah. This one's really interesting, and we get a lot of requests to look into these sort of like self-help spirituality kind of books.
Right. Yeah, big topic.
Yeah, and this one's like I was saying, it's called The Untwisting, and the whole idea here is that the world kind of gets its hooks into us early on
Mm-hmm.
and starts telling us who we are
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and shaping who we think we are.
Absolutely. And it's like from the moment you're born, right?
Yeah,
You're given a name, you're put in blue or pink clothes.
it starts right away.
Yeah, you're immediately categorized in a way, and then you're told, boys do this, girls do that.
Right. And then you go to school, and then there's peer pressure, and then there's societal expectations.
Mm-hmm. The media and all of that.
It's like a constant bombardment. And so the point of this book, the mission for us today and for you listening is like, let's think about how this has actually happened to you.
Okay. Yeah, let's untwist it.
Let's untwist it, right?
Let's examine these forces.
Yeah, because the book starts out with this question. It's like right there on the cover. Who are you? Really?
That's a good question to start with, I think.
Right. It kind of makes you stop and think.
It does. It makes you think about all those influences, like we were just saying, and how much they've actually shaped our perception of ourselves.
Yeah, and are we living the life that we were meant to live, or are we living a life that's been kind of,
Imposed upon us.
imposed upon us by all these different forces?
Yeah, it's like, are we living our truth or someone else's version of it?
So that's the big question. And ultimately what this book is trying to get at is this idea that there's a way to break free from all that,
Right. To find that authentic self.
to find the real you. And he calls it like this God-given identity.
Interesting.
So that's where we're going.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So if you're ready, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, so we talked about how the world tries to define us like right from the start,
From day one, pretty much.
but Moore breaks it down even further. He says there's like three main forces at play here.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, you've got society, obviously.
The big one, right? All
Yeah.
those expectations and norms.
All the shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Exactly.
You should get a good job, you should get married, you should have kids, you should.
And then there's the whole comparison game, right? Keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh yeah, and social media just amplifies all of that.
That's a whole other layer.
So that's society. That's a big one.
Big one for sure.
And then he talks about sin, which is interesting.
Now that's a loaded term for some people.
It is. It is. And he's coming at it from like a very specific theological perspective.
Right?
He's saying basically that from birth,
Mm.
we have this inclination to choose selfishness over,
Over good, over what's right.
over good over what's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like this inherent flaw that pulls us away from our true selves. And it's not like, he's not saying babies are born evil.
No, I don't think he's saying that.
It's more like this tendency we have to make choices that ultimately don't serve us.
That lead us down the wrong path.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see how that fits into the whole untwisting idea.
Yeah. And then the third force is deception.
Ooh, that's a juicy one.
Right. And this is where things get really interesting because it's not always like these big, obvious lies.
Right. It's not always like some evil mastermind whispering in your ear.
It's more insidious than that. It's these little messages we pick up along the way.
Like those limiting beliefs we tell ourselves.
Exactly. Like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never be successful.
Or I'm not worthy of love.
And these things can really take root and shape how we see ourselves.
And they can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Totally. So he says, all these forces, societies and deception, they're all working together to shape you into
a false version of yourself.
a false version of yourself.
That's pretty heavy.
It is. It's heavy stuff.
But is there hope? Is there a way out of this twisted mess?
That's the good news. That's what the rest of the book is about. He says there's a way to untwist, to break free.
Okay, tell me more.
He calls it spiritual rebirth, like this rediscovering of the real you, the person God designed you to be before time began.
So it's like going back to the source.
Yeah, like stripping away all those layers of,
Oh, societal programming and all that.
Exactly, and getting back to that core essence.
I like that.
And it's not just about like, feeling good about yourself or whatever.
Right. It's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that. It's about fulfilling your purpose.
Living a life of meaning.
Living a life of meaning.
Okay, so how do we do it? How do we untwist?
Well, that's where the real work comes in.
Mhm.
He talks about this being a call to transformation, a call to action.
So it's not a passive process?
No, it's active.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the lies we've been told and rejecting them.
Taking back our power.
Exactly. And then renewing our minds, choosing to believe the truth about who we are.
So it's a mental battle.
He literally says, the battle for your mind is the battle for your destiny.
Wow, that's powerful.
Right. So it's about, taking control of our thoughts, our beliefs, our attitudes.
And aligning them with our true selves.
And he goes into detail about specific practices you can do to, reprogram your thinking.
Like meditation or affirmations or...
Yeah, all that stuff. And also, surrounding yourself with the right people.
Finding your tribe.
Finding your tribe, exactly.
So it's a holistic transformation.
It is. It's mind, body, and spirit.
That's a big undertaking.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but he argues that it's worth it.
Because the stakes are high.
The stakes are high, right? It's your destiny we're talking about.
No pressure.
No pressure.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we have more power than we realize to shape our own identities.
Right. We're not just victims of circumstance.
Exactly. We can choose to untwist, to break free from those forces that have been holding us back.
And to step into our true selves.
Exactly. And it's a journey. It's a process.
It's not a quick fix.
No, but it's possible.
And maybe even essential for a fulfilling life.
I think so.
So the question is, are you ready to fight for it? Or are you ready to untwist?
That's the question he leaves us with. Are you ready to fight for it?
I think that's a great place to leave it for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah, let that one sink in for a bit and think about what forces have been shaping you and if you're ready to start untwisting.
Yeah, because who knows what you might discover about yourself along the way.
Exactly. All right, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the untwisting.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. And as always, keep diving deep.
Keep untwisting.
Until next time.